Hey everybody, welcome into another edition of Make Every Second Count Live with me, your host and international award-winning Make Every Second Count speaker, Jeff Marconette Jr. But we're in for an awesome show tonight, learning how this lady, Pearl, found the strength to move on. Well, not really move on after losing her son, but she is a very successful women's coach and she's doing some amazing things. But I am Jeff Marconette Jr. As I already told you, my background is when I was 17, I spent 2.5 months in a coma after being hit by a semi truck. And I am here now helping other people go through or grow through what they are going through. So I would love for you guys to give us all kinds of comments, thumbs up, hearts, frowny faces, cry faces, angry faces. Just help us trick the algorithm on any of your social media networks. Also, don't forget to invite people, share this episode out with the people. I would love that too. But with no further ado, I would like to bring a Pearl to the stage.
Hi, Jeff.
Hey, how are you doing tonight?
I'm awesome. Thank you so much for having me here.
Well, thank you so much for being here, for taking the time out of your busy evening to be here with me. I know you just got off a coaching call with somebody, so that's pretty awesome that you took the time out to be here with me and my viewers.
I love this. I think it's so important to share stories like your story and then even mine, whatever way we can pay it forward to others. I think it's so powerful. So I appreciate you taking the time out of your day and have me on.
Well, thank you. So, if you would like to go through a short introduction, I'm going to be sharing this out to a few groups and hopefully getting some more people to watch.
Awesome. So I would love to. So, hi, everybody. My name is Pearl Knapp-Chiarenza, and I am a mental fitness life coach. I love to help women put themselves first without guilt and step into the power of the word no, which is a sentence to others and yes to themselves. I am in Tampa, Florida, and I am as I said, a mental fitness life coach. I am also a wife to my husband of almost 40 years, and I have two amazing sons. My son Matthew, forever 25, and my youngest son Nate, who's 23 and just bought his first house back in May. So I'm so
Wow.
proud of both of them. Yes.
Props on that one. That's pretty awesome. Buying your first house is a huge accomplishment.
Absolutely. At a young age of 23, and we're so proud of him.
Yeah, that's awesome. So, I know that in life you have to grow through a lot of things. Now, when I say grow through things, I'm really saying go through things. But I believe that you have to learn the lessons and actually grow as a person in order to get to the other side and find that joy in your heart once again. So, has there been anything in your life that you have had to grow through?
Yeah. Wow. So I can start with kind of take you on a little journey of my life. So back
Okay.
when my husband and I first got married, for 10 years we tried to have children and it just wasn't in the cards to do it naturally. So we were blessed with the adoption of our oldest son, Matthew, who was born of our hearts. And a few years later, with doctor's help, we had our amazing son, Nate. And
Woo!
yeah, so it was just a beautiful thing. And, when we were adopting our son, Matthew, we never thought that when we made our list, because Matthew was mixed race, he was Haitian and Czechoslovakian. So before we committed to
Wow.
bringing Matthew into our world, we wanted to make sure those we were going to surround him with were going to be good for him to be in our family. And on that list of people who we thought might not be around, good for us to be around anymore because they may not be accepting of our adopting a child of mixed race, never once did my dad show up on that list. And years later, when my son Matthew became a teenager, my dad became very racist towards our son. And I didn't find out till a couple years after my dad had moved on to and moved in with his second wife, what had all the details of what had happened. And so I felt really horrible as a mom that I didn't see the signs. And so I had to sit back, and I was a daddy's girl, Jeff. I mean, if I could tell you the description of a daddy's girl, that was me. My world walked around my dad. And so I had to sit back and really, when I found out some of the things he did, I sat in the person's driveway that shared the details with me. And I just asked God to tell me, what do I do? You know, this is my dad. I'm supposed to love my dad.
Yeah.
And it brought me back to something that one of my pastors told me. He said, you know, we don't get to pick our parents. God picks our parents. However, we can set boundaries around that. And I decided at that moment that to write an obituary to my dad as him no longer being my dad. While he's still here in the world physically, even today, he no longer had the honor of being called my dad. And the powerful thing about that is years later, you know, I reached out to my son Matthew and I told him I did not know, I never saw it coming. And he told me a few years later, he's like, you know, mom, if you want your dad to come back into our lives, I'm okay with that. Which made me feel really great for my husband and I, because it was an example of how we raise our kids. We raise
Yeah.
our boys to be forgiving. And, you know, I share with him, I appreciate that. And that for me, my boundaries had to be that my dad was no longer the privilege of being called dad. So that was a big trial for us to go through. And then the other part of that too was we moved from Virginia to Florida. So we were in Virginia for over 13 years. We came to Florida because it was an opportunity to me possibly be a stay-at-home mom. And I did not enjoy it. I hated the PTA drama. It reminded me of high school days. And, you know, I had great friends I met through the PTA. It was just a lot of stuff that didn't bring me joy. And so I decided that I wanted to go and do something. And so I went on the path of, at the time, my health wasn't great. So I wanted to go on a path of getting myself healthier. And so I did that. And as I became a health coach, I was sitting with women that would say, "Hey, can you talk to my friend? But she doesn't need to lose weight, but you're such a great listener and you're such a great, you know, guidance of creating that roadmap of where I should go in my life. And I think you would be great to speak with her." And so I found myself sitting and having tea with women and talking with them about how to create boundaries in their lives. And I eventually had to learn that as well. In 2015, I did an identity and destiny class. And at the end of 6 weeks, we had to give our I am statement. And I still didn't know who the heck I was. I still said I was a mom, a wife, and all that. So if you heard when you asked me my introduction, I said who I was first. I brought my children and my husband in after. And that's because I learned that we have to step into who we are. We have to become that Shiro of our life. We have to learn to become stronger, happier, become empowered, God bless you, radiant in our original selves in order to show up for our family, our kids, our business, and our job. And so as I was on this journey of myself, I realized I wasn't alone. I realized there's so many women like myself that don't put themselves first, that we have this guilt that we say no. We're like, oh my gosh, I'm saying no, they may not like me, you know, they may think that I'm selfish. But no, listen, if you're listening to us right now, no is a sentence, and we should say no as excitedly as we say yes. Because when you say no to something that doesn't really in your lane, and you say yes because you don't want them to feel, you don't want to feel guilty. Here's the epiphany that I had. The aha for me was, I actually was keeping doors closed for other people that were waiting to come into something that I was saying yes to that I didn't really align with. And so as I did that, I realized that saying no was easier for me to do than before. And then as I did that, I became the example to my boys that putting myself first is not guilty. That really I have to show up for me to show up for them. And you know, as that came about, last year at one point, my oldest son Matthew, he was going through some stuff about a year before he died, so about 2 years ago. And he said to me one day, he said, "Mom, how do you show up and like have a smile on your face and be happy all the time?" And I share with him, it's not easy. It's a choice, right? Life throws stuff at us. It's a choice. And so what you choose to
Exactly.
do, yeah. So how you choose to approach each day is a choice. And I shared with him that I made the decision that I had to put myself first. If that meant that I couldn't show up to something for a friend, or that meant that I couldn't be there for an activity they were doing, it wasn't because I didn't want to. It's because I needed to do this for me. And truly, what for me, that's where my word Shiro came from. because as I did that, I found that as I said no to others, I was becoming stronger in that word no. And so as I did that, I found that I was happier, that I was present with my family, with my friends, with my business. And then as I became that happier person, I become empowered to step out. Who would have thought years ago I would step on a stage or be on something like this with you? I would have never done if you met me years ago. And then as I became empowered, people used to say to me, "What's going on with you, Pro? Like you got this glow, like you're very radiant." It's because as you step into that power, you do that happiness starts to show up, right? And then as I became that radiant self, I actually became originally in who I meant to be, who God said when He put me here, He had a goal for me. And I was actually stepping into that goal, which was empowering other women to understand you're not alone, that it's okay to say no. And it's okay to not feel guilty when you say no. And the
Yeah.
thing about that happened was my son is like, "Mom, I see it in you." And last year, the weekend before he passed, like actually the day before he passed, it was July 24th. He was here at the house and we were joking around. We were throwing water bottles at each other and just having fun. And he said, I'm so proud of you. I'm so proud that you found that who you are, Mom." And so, it's that led to the tragic story of how we lost him. I talked to him, my husband and I, he butt dialed us about midnight of the morning of the 25th of July. And we called him back and he promised us that he was in an Uber. He was not an Uber, he was actually in our car, we found out. And we were talking to him and he told us he loved us, that the blessing is we got to tell each other we loved each other. And I'm going to tell you, if you have children, if you're listening to me and you have children, will tell you that you will know when something's happened to your child. I was sitting on the couch. Normally, I sit next to my husband. He's in a recliner. I usually sit next to him. Something had me get up and go sit the opposite end of the couch. And as I was sitting there, I had this huge feeling of I was shaking tremendously. And my husband was like, "You're going to have a heart attack." And I'm like, "This is not a heart attack. Something's wrong." And unfortunately, it took almost 12 hours from the time he passed, actually about 9 hours from the time he passed that we knew he passed. He passed at about 12:20 a.m. However, nobody came to my door. We didn't have the knock at the door from the police. He had my car, my registration, his license was our address. Everything was tied to us. Unfortunately, the Lakeland Police Department here in Florida chose not to come to our door. They said it was a human error. They claimed that they put a request into my county where I live, which is Hillsborough County, and they don't know that I'm very connected in my community. So I called many people that work for our local police department, and they had said, "We got something in around 11 a.m., but they pulled it back." My son passed at 12:20. At 9 o'clock in the morning, I had said to my husband, we hadn't heard from him. I'd been up all night long, worried about him. And Jeff, I saw it on the news. There was an article come across the news. A man passed from Brandon, Florida. I saw it looked like my car. Now, Jeff, it gets even worse. Had I not seen it on the news, so I saw it on the news and I called the morgue right away. Something said just call the morgue. I don't know why I did, but I just called the morgue. The morgue is not covered by HIPAA. They disclosed to me, didn't even ask who I was, and disclosed that my son was there, that he had passed.
Yeah.
Had I not done that, my first phone call, had I not had those two things happen before, I believe God made sure I had those two things happen before. My next phone call was from the eye donation for organ donations to donate his eyes. So 9:30 in the morning, that's how I found out my son passed. My husband came home. We called my mom right away in California. A good friend came over right away. My nephew, who's a police officer in California, actually called the Lakeland Police Department, and they promised us somebody would call us. Never heard from anybody. Monday went by, never heard from anybody. Tuesday went by, never heard from anybody. Wednesday morning, my girlfriend says, "Pearl, there's an article in the paper. They're asking for more information. Anybody that knows anything, can they reach out to this officer?" I reached out to him via email and I said, "This is his mom. Had this been your mom or your grandmother, would you want her to find out this way?" And immediately I got a phone call. I can't prove it, Jeff. My son, as I said, is mixed race. Matthew had already just recovered from a DUI. Unfortunately, it was his choice to drive. He knew that that was a choice that he shouldn't have made. And we can't, life is on a remote. I can't rewind it. I'm, I have anger at him for doing those choices, but I can't hold that anger. I'm blessed that the day before, like I said, we knew that he loved us. We told each other we loved each other. And so that, we truly, in my heart of hearts, I feel like there was some discrimination there, because I know they smelled the alcohol, they saw who he was, and they probably pulled his record up and already knew. It's not anything you can prove, and they've tried everything to give me every excuse in the book about why it went down that it did, but nobody's even apologized to us. So that's how I found out. However, I want to say this, Jeff. I was the example of being a hero in my life to Matthew. And people often ask me, how do I stay so strong? And I really believe that if I don't continue to live that life of putting myself first, I'm not honoring what Matthew saw me become. I'm not honoring his memory to say, yeah, I could probably go sit in my room and sit in a bed and cry the rest of my life away. And some people are in that spot, right? And if you are, please know, my heart goes out to you, because this is not anything I would wish on my worst enemy. And I just choose, it's a choice that I believe that I have to continue living the example of being that Shiro that he saw me be. Because then if not, I'm not showing up for my other son, Nate. Nate's amazing. He was an amazing brother to Nate. They loved each other dearly. And Nate's got great things happening. Like I said, he's got a house that he just bought with his girlfriend. Probably a few years down the line, there's probably going to be a marriage there. Great things are happening. If I don't show up in my life today because I want to live in that regret of Matthew's passing, then I'm going to watch life pass by. And so that's why I choose to get up every day and honor Matthew, say some words to Matthew every day. I say words to him that I love him, and I go visit him and things like that. But I have to honor his memory to be who I was when he was here with me today.
Yeah. Well, first of all, let me say sorry for the Lakeland Police Department, because that just breaks my heart hearing that, and I'm sorry. So
Thank you.
now I know that in 2016 I lost my mom. Now it was just a normal night. She had one of her episodes, and it nobody thought anything of it. And so I went over to the house. My dad had just called the ambulance for my mom, and I was going to flag them down and everything. And I walked inside and said, "The ambulance is here, Mom. I love you." And she said, "I love you to me." Those were the last words I got to say to my mom. And I'm so happy that I said those words at that moment. And there are so many people out there that don't say I love you to the people they love. And the people they love never actually know that they love them, or they have an idea, but you didn't really express that. And I want to reach out to each and every person and let them know that I love them, that they are important in my life. And I think it is so important that we do that. So I have to ask, uh, you you garnered all this strength from something your son told you before he passed. But how have you held on to that? How have you used that to fuel your fire?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I also want to talk about what you just said too, because you're right. We don't have the opportunity. We miss those opportunities sometimes to tell those that we love them, right? And something that happened with Matthew after he passed, about a week after he passed, we tried everything on his phone to unlock his phone. I didn't realize I had his password through Apple to do it through Apple online, but his phone got locked. And so we couldn't reach out to everybody. And of course, we put everything on social media that we could, but A week after he passed, he had a friend show up at my door wanting to stop in and say hi to Matthew, and we had to tell him that Matthew passed. A few days later, that same thing happened. About 4 or 5 months later, the weirdest thing, Jeff, I had upgraded my phone. For whatever reason, I just believe it's a divine intervention.
Hmm.
Matthew's phone number is merged with my phone number. So both his numbers are on my phone. Every so often, somebody will be like, "Hey, I haven't heard from you. How are you doing?" And I know that's somebody trying to reach out to Matthew. So I have to make that phone call and be there for that person. It made me and my husband talk about what can we do, because people don't, understand. So every July, and it's not just July. So if you're listening today and you hear this, we start a thing, make the call for Matt. Call somebody you haven't talked to in a while. Just say, "Hey, I love you." Whether it's, you may or may not be meaning offense, but just be like, "Hey, I love you." And don't just text it, like physically make the voice call, because
Yeah.
people have to hear our voices and you never know who you're going to impact the day that you do that. So I just want to say that to what you said. And, yeah, I mean, like I said, I could easily just garner up in my PJs in my bed and just, watch life go by. I don't know. Ever since I was 14 years old, I've kind of been on my own, and I've had the strength of doing things on my own. And I just feel like, I have so much to pay forward. So many women that, have walked this walk of either losing a child or just putting themselves last. And I know what it's like for me to step into, the word Shiro, step into that strength that I have. And I really dig into that. I mean, there's days, I'm going to be very honest. There's days, like about 4 or 5 days ago, I just woke up and I just felt the loss of Matthew very heavy, and I just cried. I mean, I just let the tears come out where they come out. I've been in a grocery store before, and the guy behind the meat counter, I'm standing there ordering meat for the sandwiches, and all of a sudden I was crying. It's like, "Are you okay? Did I say something?" I'm like, "No, no, no, I'm fine. It's all good." But because I really feel if we block in our feelings, we can't process. And I really believe it's part of the process. Um, and I have to say that, like I said before, I came to a point in my life where I realized I matter, and I have to be here for me. And if I don't continue to do that, then everything I learned, everything Matt saw me, and even Nate watches me do today would be for nothing. And it was an example that he saw when he was here. And, he left behind a beautiful girlfriend who she already had a daughter when Matthew met her, and Evie became like, Matthew just loved Evie to death. So he's left us behind that gift of Brittany and Evie. They live in New Jersey now. We miss them from afar, but he's left us a piece of him through them. So having that to hold on to as well, is powerful. And knowing that Matthew left this world knowing how much he was loved. He didn't have some of the answers from his adoption that he was looking for and searching for. However, I know that he was loved, and he knows that he was very loved, and he was at peace
Absolutely.
with everything. So that's
Yeah.
what I hold on to, Jeff.
So I hate to change the subject because I am loving this conversation. And if you guys out there are enjoying this conversation, it doesn't matter if you are watching the replay or you're watching with us live. Please put a number 1 in the comments and show your support for Pearl and myself with our losses that we have had. And I will also put a 1 in the comments to show the support to you guys, because I know that each of you out there have probably lost somebody as well. Thank you, Gina. I appreciate that. Gina.
That's Orsini. That's my. I call her my sister-in-law because she's my sister-in-law. Hi, Gina.
Well, that's cool. I I I, I so I have to ask, like, all right, let's say somebody else in life is going through something. Now, it might be the same as you, it might be different than you. How can you tell them that they need to focus on themselves? Because if they don't take care of themselves, then how in the world are they ever going to take care of anybody else?
Yeah, that's a great question. And that's a hard question for some of us because, it took me the longest time to realize that I really needed to show up for myself. Right. And so I would say if you're at a point where whether you've lost, had a huge loss, you're going through a divorce, something is happening in your life, or you just are ready to make a change, I would say reach out to somebody. It's, a coach like myself. It's so amazing to have even I have a coach. I have two coaches. I have a business coach and I have a coach personally. And so just reach out for help and just ask somebody, hey, this is how I'm feeling. What would you suggest? Like, it doesn't hurt to ask for help. But if you're not sure where to start, I would say start with journaling. I am a big proponent when I coach with my clients. I say, let's journal. Let's just start there, because then you can start releasing. I like to do what's called brain dumping. If you've never journaled before, it's the easiest way to learn to journal. And that's just brain dumping. Find a point in your day which just dump everything that's in your head, everything that's between your ears, and just put it on a piece of paper and let it go. And then here's the thing. Sometimes you might have a to-do list. Like, brain dumping is like whatever's in your head. Oh, the sky was pretty today. Oh, I got to call this person today. Oh, I want to go for a run. Oh, I feel so and so pissed me off today. Whatever is on that list, put it on the list. Look over the list. If there's something that's on your to-do list, move it to another piece of paper. But then there's something to say about crumbling that piece of that to-do list and throwing it away. That brain dump, throw it away. Put it in the trash, because then you're truly releasing it. If you can burn it, but just throw it away. That's the first thing I would say if you're not sure where to start, is to brain dump your feelings. I have a couple of clients that they will wake up in the middle of the night. They're learning how to get better sleep, but until they get there, they'll wake up with thoughts in their heads, and they have a journal next to their bed. And I just say, just grab it and write what's on your mind, what's keeping you awake, and just let it go. Because brain dumping is a great way to start. And then from there, you can journal more about what, breaking down more what your feelings are. And one of the things that I always say to my clients when I work with them too is, and I did this before my son passed, so it's not because Matthew's passing, but I always would say, if tomorrow you were not here, and the only thing somebody could say at your eulogy is what they saw you do for yourself, what would they say? Right. And if they can't come up, or you can't come up with 5 things they would say for yourself, you got to start working on putting yourself first. Because if they can say, oh, she volunteered and she always showed up for this person, that person, or she did this or that, but they can't say they saw you sit in your front porch swing and journal, go to the beach and watch the sunset, spend a quiet time in the backyard with your loved one, then we need to talk, because you've got to start finding a spot to put yourself first. But I would say if you're struggling, start brain dumping what's on your mind and releasing it, and then ask for help. I think we're past the old days where it was a bad thing to get help. Now it's a sign of strength, and that you need to get help. It's okay to ask for help.
Wow. That's so wise. Those 3 things you told us in there. Journaling. I'll put it up on the screen here. Journaling, brain dump, and ask for help.
Yes.
So I I hate to cut this short, but our time is up.
I know,
And
it goes
and
fast.
that's really surprising to me. It went so quick. But I want to ask you, first of all, or not first of all, but before we go, is there a way that somebody can reach out to you if they want to get in touch with you?
Yeah, I would say just go to it's called pearlsurvey.com. So you can take the survey for your self-care. So it's Pearls, PearlsSurvey, pearlsurvey.com, and take the self-care test, and that will lead you straight to me. Or you can just email the word Shiro to hello@wsliving.com. So that's hello@wsliving.com. Put the word Shiro in there, and I'll reach out to you.
All right, let's hold on just a second here. I'm not the best typer. I still don't have the use of my right hand. So
You're doing
I
an
have
amazing job. I've been watching you type. You're doing awesome.
well, I'm trying. So wsliving.com.
That's my website. But if they want to email me, they can email me at hello
All right.
at wsliving.com.
And then hello. Oh, darn it. I put hello. That doesn't work. Hello at wsliving.com. All right, awesome. I thank you so much for taking the time out of your evening to be here and to share your story with my guest and everything. And I hope people out there share this episode out, and don't forget to give us all kinds of thumbs up, hearts, whatever. Just help us trick the algorithm on those Facebook or social media networks. I can't just say Facebook anymore. It's weird. But I need everybody out there, including you, Pearl, to do me a favor this week, next week, and for the rest of your life. I need you to make every second count. Why? Because you never know when your seconds are going to run out on your one life. Hey, you guys have a great night, and I will talk to you guys next Tuesday, 7 p.m. Eastern Time. And until then, don't forget to make every second count. Thank you
Thank you,
again.
Jeff.